Okay, welcome everyone to our first edition of the Dark Web series brought to you by the team here at Sundog. My name is Josh Plaza. I'm the marketing manager here.
I'm Colin Kee, NOC engineer here at Sundog.
Today, we are going to be talking about the dark web and how to keep your personal information safe. Before we get started, though, I want to encourage everyone to check out our YouTube channel. You'll find tons of great videos on a wide variety of tech tips and important information to help your organization become stronger. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and like if you haven't already, if you are watching on YouTube after the fact. And if you guys have any questions, please be sure to enter them in the chat, the Q&A box down below. And feel free to reach out to us at yourteam@sundog.com. Or you can call us at 815-991-2400. Colin, I think that is it. You are ready to go.
Thanks, Josh, and welcome everyone. First, can everyone post in the chat that you can see and hear me? Just take a look real quick. And you know what, that might end up being in the Q&A. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Good.
So today I'm going to go through some common questions about the dark web, just to help everyone get a better understanding of what it is and how it's used. So we're not going to dive deep today, just kind of keep it light and give everyone a good understanding. So what is the dark web? Well, the dark web is basically a part of the internet that requires special software to access. In today's example, that special software is the Tor browser. But just as a side note, there are other dark nets or dark networks that are used on the dark web, but the Tor network is by far the most popular one. So let's go to this next image here. And this kind of shows the layers of the internet. So what we have here is the surface web. And you can think of that as basically anything you can find with a Google search or, things like Amazon, CNN, Facebook, etc. And the deep web, that's something that most of you use every day. And that makes up over 90% of the internet. And that's going to be pretty much anything that requires a password to access. So when you log into your bank account and you put in that password, people can't just search up that page and look at your statements. It requires special access. And that's going to be the deep web. It gets confused with the dark web a lot, but it's definitely something different. And then the last one, what we're talking about today, is going to be the dark web. So that makes up roughly 6% of the internet. And that's going to be encrypted networks that, again, require special software to access. So again, today is going to be talking about Tor, but there are other dark web networks. So how do I use the Tor browser? Well, the Tor browser can be downloaded at torproject.org and works similar to regular browsers. Just like a regular browser, you can go to Amazon.com, Facebook, things like that. But what makes the Tor browser special is it can go to these dark web addresses that end in .onion. These addresses that end in .onion are typically referred to as onion services instead of websites. And because the traffic has to flow through so many servers, it's often slower than many browsers. You can see in this diagram here, the traffic goes from server to server to server and ultimately comes out at the end. So because of that, it's going to be slower, but also those servers can be in different countries all over the world. So that's part of the privacy that you get. And also the browser is also referred to as the onion router, because each of the servers it passes through is another layer of encryptions. And just like an onion, it has layers. So if you just give me a second here, I'm going to try and open up the Tor browser. Okay, so you should be able to see the Tor browser now. And it should look pretty much like most, did I lose it? Here we go. Should look like most other browsers. It's going to have the search, the URL bar, and it'll work just like any other browser. So for example, if I go to apple.com You can see it's taking a little bit longer than probably most browsers, but eventually it'll get there and apple.com will load. And there you go. You can also do a search, and that'll work just like a regular browser too. So yeah, it works mostly the same. What makes it unique though is, again, those onion services. So I'm going to pull one up real quick. I'm going to paste it up here in the URL bar. And you can see it looks like a lot of gibberish and ends in .onion. So we're going to go to this one. And again, it's taken a few minutes to load, but this is actually the CIA's website. And they have a website just so that people in other countries have a secure method to kind of reach out and communicate if need be. So they run one of these onion services. And then I'm going to pull one more in this browser demonstration just to kind of show you some of the other things. So again, just kind of a bunch of gibberish, ends in .onion. Don't ask me how to pronounce this, but it's a dark web search engine. And what it will do is it will actually search for those onion services. And what I think is interesting is if you just do a simple search for something like, let's do Facebook. Right away, you can see the results are all going to be about hacking and compromising accounts, stealing passwords and stuff like that. So that's going to be kind of the general vibe you're going to get on a lot of these types of searches on the dark web, just because that activity is so prevalent. And you can see these are these onion services, and they all end in .onion, but it's just a bunch of gibberish, and it's really hard to tell where that's going to take you or what it's used for. So give me a moment. I'll go ahead and switch back to the PowerPoint. Okay, we'll move on. So one question we get often is the dark web used just for crime? And the answer is no. So the main feature of the dark web is for its anonymity. So when used properly, no one knows who anyone else is. And I guess when I say used properly, I'll just add that most people who use the dark web or the Tor browser will also use a VPN at the same time. It's not required to use it, but it does add an extra layer of privacy and security. So that's what I mean when I say when used properly. It's also interesting that the dark web was developed by the US Navy, so they can have sensitive military communications, and they probably don't use the Tor network, but they have a network of their own for those communications. And also, a lot of non-criminals use the dark web for its anonymity, such as activists, whistleblowers, journalists, things like that. Another thing I think is kind of interesting is that there is so much crime on the dark web, and the US government does spend a lot of time trying to catch those who use it illegally, but they still provide about 60% of the funding for the dark web for their use, but also just so that people in like authoritarian countries have a nice resource where they can speak out. So isn't the dark web dangerous? And how do I navigate it safely? So yes, it is dangerous. There are no shortages of scams and phishing attacks that target new users. So the first thing most users do when they start using the dark web is they're going to search up, dark websites, these onion services, and scammers know this. So even if you find a link that says this is the New York Times onion service, because like in that demonstration, those URLs are just kind of really ambiguous and you just don't know what they are. It's not like when you look at Amazon.com and this is Amazon. You really have no way of knowing where that's going to take you. So that link could easily lead to malware or something else that's dangerous. So the key is to know your URL. There are web forums, Reddit groups, and other sites that do host lists of what's considered safe and trusted links. And also torproject.org also offers some safe links to some onion services. So definitely, if you plan to use it, make sure you know the URLs and where you plan to go ahead of time. So I've heard about people's information being sold on the dark web. Yeah, that does happen. And the big question is, how did they get my information? So this is kind of the meat and potatoes of the dark web. So what really happens most of the time is people get your information from a data breach or phishing. Those two are the most popular. Sometimes it's physical theft. If they, steal a passport or a driver's license, those get sold on the dark web too. And sometimes it's hacking. But again, data breaches and phishing are the most common. And just to kind of give you an example of how that works, a typical cycle would be someone would, breach a company like Experian or something like that, or some other company, and they get a big load of data. Maybe that's a big list of usernames or email addresses and passwords. And so what they're going to do is they want to profit from that. So they're going to go and sell it on the dark web. And once that's sold, whoever buys it is going to go ahead and take that information and feed it into a computer. And what this computer is going to do is it's going to take that username or that email address and that password, and it's just all day long going to try them on different websites, hundreds of different websites, banking websites, all kinds of other websites, hoping that they get a hit. And what they're hoping for is that you use that email and that password on some other website. And so once they get in, they'll get notified by the system. They can go ahead and get in and kind of assess what is the information. Is it like a Facebook account or is it a bank account? And then once they do that, they can determine, what's the value and go ahead and sell that on the dark web. And it's kind of like a cycle. So they get information from the dark web to obtain more information that they can turn around and sell. Also, it's not always going to be kind of like emails and passwords. So sometimes they might just get a list of emails, and people sometimes think, well, they got my email. That's not that scary. But what's going to happen is, again, when that gets sold on the dark web, someone's going to take that information, feed it into a computer, and now that computer is just going to send thousands and thousands of phishing emails. And again, they're hoping that you're going to click a link, put in your password. Again, they'll get those credentials and then evaluate, what is this account worth something on the dark web? And they can turn around and sell that. So it's not just emails and passwords, it's social security numbers, all types of things. So if you want to take a second to look, this image here kind of shows some rough prices, estimates of what things value for on the dark web. Okay. So is there anything I can do to keep my information safe? The good thing is, yes, there is. Unique password is a big one. Again, that software that I just discussed will try your username or email and password on multiple websites. So if you can use a unique password on different websites, that's going to help you a lot. Josh and I already made a video on passwords. So if you're thinking of changing some of your passwords after this, I'd recommend watching that video. Use two-factor authentication whenever it's available. So even if they have that username and password, that 6-digit PIN that they don't have will keep them out. Be cautious of phishing emails and clicking links. So if you get an email that says you need to reset your Office 365 password, definitely don't click that link. Go to the Office website, try and log in, and if it needs you to reset it, it'll let you know. And also just be aware that most phishing emails have a call to action. So they want you to do something, and it's usually right away. So just be aware of that. And credit and debit alerts or bank account alerts, if you can set that up, I'd recommend that, so that if someone does get one of your accounts and makes purchases, you're going to be notified right away and can kind of take some action instead of things kind of get out of hand. So that kind of moved a little bit quicker than we were hoping, but definitely can take some questions and
Yep.
kind of open it up.
We did have one question from Craig. He says, so 6% on the dark web, so the hidden content is 1.5 times the amount of all normal accessible content that we all use. I think he was referring to the iceberg
Yeah.
graphic.
Yeah. Let me see if I can jump back to that. Yeah. And so the reason is because the Tor network is just one of the networks. Another one that's used kind of semi-popular is like BitTorrent, where people download movies and music and stuff illegally. That again is a separate network that requires special software, being that BitTorrent software. And so they're counting kind of all the traffic and kind of locations on the internet. So yeah, 6%. So it would be more, just like the number when I first saw the 90%, I was kind of taken back that 90% is in the deep web. So yeah, that's what they're kind of getting those numbers from. Any other questions?
Good question, Craig. Doesn't look like we have any other questions. Guys, thank you so much for coming on to our webinar series. We are very glad that you guys could make it. If you guys have any other further questions, please make sure to call us at 815-991-2400. And don't forget to visit our YouTube channel. Please smash that subscribe and like button if you haven't already, if you are watching after the fact. Colin, thank you so much for your time
Absolutely.
today and all the information. Guys, please make sure to check back again next month for another one of our dark web webinar series. Please take care.
Take care.